Today, we're going to focus on the detailed aspects of promotional execution. We'll address questions around who our target audience is, what our message should look like, what our promotional objectives are, and through which medium we'd like to communicate with the customer. First off, who's my communication target? Now, you might say, wait, we already talked about that. That's part of strategy. And you're right, but this is a little different. Often, our communication target isn't the same as our overall strategic target. It's typically a subset of that product's target. We chose a subset for communication purposes because it can be difficult to reach our overall target through one channel. Another difference is that we usually think about our promotional target in media terms. That is, we should know who they are demographically, what media they consume, and ideally, where they are in the search process. Let's look at an example. Imagine that the marketing managers for Cialis decided that the strategic target for their new product is going to be current Viagra users. Let's imagine that they've decided to build awareness for their new product through TV advertising. Now, to do this, they have to figure out how current Viagra users map into the demographic buckets that media is usually purchased in. For example, they might decide that men between the ages of, say, 45 and 64 are likely to overlap with Viagra users. The next step, then, is to figure out the media habits of this target. What websites or magazines they read, what do they watch on television? Since men 45 to 64, like all demographic groups, are quite heterogeneous, we're going to have multiple communication targets. No one medium will allow us to reach our overall strategic target. Let's now shift our focus to the next step. What's our objective? What do we want to accomplish as a result of our promotional plan? It's useful here to refer to the underlying decision-making process being implemented by the customer. We want to consider what stage in the buying process do we want to address consumers, and where do we want to have our influence. Let's walk through a few examples. Imagine that you're out of honey, so you head to the grocery store to buy some. Honey is, for many people, a classic low-involvement product. With that in mind, then, where would a honey manufacturer such as Miller's Honey want to have an impact? Possibly at what's called the point of purchase, the location of the choice decision. On the other hand, however, here's an example of McCormick spices. Even though spices may also be a low-involvement product, McCormick decides here to influence at the need recognition stage. Even with low-involvement products, it may in some cases be helpful to expand the market by promoting to people who haven't yet recognized their need. McCormick released an ad with the intention to persuade people that they should buy more spices. In the ad, they've displayed common spice containers and their age, attempting to remind the consumer that their spices may be old and stale. These two examples are both low-involvement products, but they're investing in different stages of the decision-making process. Miller's Honey focusing at the choice purchase stage, and McCormick at the need recognition stage. Now here's a utilitarian product and an example of promotion being accomplished by shampoo manufacturers during the information search stage. If you type shampoo into the Google search box, you may notice that there's a tab on the top entitled Shopping. And so if you click on that tab, you'll see various shampoo brands, products, prices. There are descriptions of the products and even stars indicating customer reviews. Here, shampoo manufacturers are promoting within the information search stage. Maybe a bit surprising, but it appears that even for this product, customers are engaging in meaningful search. Next, we'll address the hedonic purchase process, one in which the customer hasn't yet recognized a need but sees an opportunity, and now has to decide whether or not to make a purchase. This is an example of a hedonic product being advertised on a billboard. You can see this while driving from Summit County back to the Denver airport in Colorado. The billboard is trying to communicate to people who may have been hurt while skiing in the mountains and were on their way home. The ad says, if you need to sue somebody when you get home, give us a call. The consumer may not have previously considered suing and now may purchase this product without doing an extensive search for the best attorney. In this case, the law firm decided who they wanted to target, hurt tourists, and at what stage in the decision-making process to influence. We'll now focus on what to say. What's the content of the ad? What message do we want to send? While this isn't always the case, we usually will choose our main message as some element of our positioning. That is, we want to tell our target customer what is so special about our product or our service. This is very different from our positioning statement, though. In particular, we need to avoid what people often refer to as being too on the nose. That is, we seldom come out and simply say, hey, we're the best for these 5 reasons. Instead, we try to look for ways to capture the customer's attention and engage her with creative content that communicates the idea without being too direct. These may be somewhat extreme examples of not being too direct. What do you think is going on here? Well, these advertisers have chosen to be almost entirely opaque. However, for their target, they're saying, we're one of you, or we speak your language, without actually saying, we speak your language. To recap, we've talked about the target, the objective, and the message, whom we're speaking to, what we want to accomplish, and what we want to say. Finally, we'll address the question of where we want to broadcast the message. Through which medium do we want to deliver that message? Some points to consider are how many people our medium can reach and what it will cost to reach them. There are also a number of other dimensions along which media can be compared. Usually, or at least traditionally, the cost of reaching customers through media channels is quoted in CPM, or cost per thousand. What does it cost to reach 1,000 people? You should know that there's a huge difference across media in terms of CPM. To run a billboard, for example, it's going to cost me about $5 to reach 1,000 people. To reach 1,000 people on primetime TV for 30 seconds, it'll cost me about 5 times that. And this difference makes a lot of sense because there's a lot more I can do through a 30-second TV spot as compared with a billboard. There's also a massive difference in terms of the targetability of the two. While a billboard is able to target people based on where they live and work, I can be more precise with my targeting through TV in terms of reaching specific demographic or psychographic groups. It's also helpful to take note of the difference in credibility between media sources. In fact, we've seen a move over the past decade away from traditional firm-to-consumer ads towards interpersonal sources of promotion, word-of-mouth marketing, for example, or social media, trying to leverage the credibility that comes from peer recommendations as compared with firm-generated ads. I'll finish here by walking through some of the well-known choices of media and discussing some of the trade-offs, the benefits and drawbacks of each. Advertising is what we think of when we think of typical marketing. The main drawback of traditional marketing is the expense. There may also be difficulty when it comes to coverage and reaching all of your customers through advertising. This is increasingly becoming the case for younger demographic groups. PR, public relations, and word-of-mouth marketing are each seen as more credible media channels. With PR, you're leveraging the credibility of the publication. With word-of-mouth marketing, you're leveraging the credibility of peers, acquaintances, or friends. However, word-of-mouth marketing may be more expensive than traditional TV advertising in some cases. There's also the argument that it's difficult to measure the impact of word-of-mouth marketing. However, I found that this is overstressed, and many marketers have placed too much trust in the measurability of traditional marketing. I found that the biggest drawback to these methods, to PR and word-of-mouth marketing or social media, is that they're difficult to control. If I need to reach X number of customers in a certain amount of time, it's going to be hard to do that through these media sources. It's impossible to know what will get picked up by a newspaper or by a blogger, or how many people will pass on the message. Because of this, these techniques are good additions to a traditional campaign, but often not the central element of it. A great method for targeting the decision-making process is search engine marketing. With this type of marketing, we can influence a buyer later in the process, after they've already determined that they have a need. There are also lots of opportunities to experiment, quickly learn, and optimize in search engine marketing. This medium is quite competitive, however. These are auction markets with many firms trying to use the same medium. It can be really expensive to reach a customer, depending on the keywords deemed necessary to do so. It's also a very sparse medium. It's limited in terms of what you can communicate. Finally, let's look at social network-based marketing. In other words, display ads or sponsored stories on sites such as Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. One of the most interesting benefits here is the tremendous opportunity to target. Some have argued that social media sites were created for social use only. Unlike search engine marketing, consumers don't go to social media to learn about products typically. Because of this, there's a question about the long-term usefulness and effectiveness of this media as a promotional opportunity. The question is, long-term, will we see this as a viable promotional medium? We'll see. The goal of this video was to walk you through the various and key questions one faces when formulating a promotional plan. We considered the communication target, overall communication objective, where to influence people in the decision-making process, what message to communicate, and finally, through which medium to distribute that message. While there's a great deal of decisions to make here, promotion is one of the most exciting and creative parts of marketing. Enjoy.